Hi, I'm Doug Kwan with the National Post. We are standing here along the Canada-US border at Peace Arch Park. It's an international park that straddles the boundary between Washington State and British Columbia. To the left of me, the southbound lanes of traffic heading to the US port of entry, and to my right, the northbound lanes heading to the Canadian port of entry. Now, where we're standing is sort of a gray zone, if you will. There's no barriers, there's no fence, there's no wall. There's nothing preventing people from walking from one side of the border to the other. On a busy day, you can see a lot of visitors milling about, snapping pictures, even having picnics here. Now, according to Canadian authorities, a Vancouver man by the name of Michael Kong took advantage of this open portion of the border by smuggling a number of migrants from China over a span of several years.
Kong has been charged with 7 counts of smuggling involving 34 Chinese migrants. But the alleged operation could be much larger. An electronic ledger or score sheet found in his home contained hundreds of names.
Mr. Kong has twice been convicted of similar offenses, violations of the Immigration and Refugee Protection Act. On one of those occasions in 2013, a trio of women from China used snakeheads to fly to the United States. Once they were in the United States, they were then transported to the Washington State border. They were dropped off in a parking lot just on the other side of those trees over there, at which point they then walked past those sets of washrooms over there and onto Canadian soil. Now, by law, once you cross the international border, you're supposed to report to the Canadian port of entry. But in this particular case, Mr. Kong led the trio of women across the lawn, across both lanes of traffic, to a vehicle that was parked on the other side. They didn't get very far. Canada Border Services Agency officers were watching them and swooped in and stopped them before they were able to drive away. During the sentencing hearing for Mr. Kong, there were a number of letters of reference from his family members to the judge, and one of those character references described Mr. Kong as a loving husband, as a caring father. One of the letters also described how he felt ashamed about what he had done, and stated that he told his family that he would never engage in this sort of activity again. If the current allegations turn out to be true against Mr. Kong, we'll know that that promise was not upheld. It is important to stress that the current charges against Mr. Kong have not been proven in court. So just within the last few moments, something caught our attention. We're not quite sure what to make of it, but I'll describe what we saw. We saw a young man on his cell phone walk from the Canadian side of the border to the American side in the direction of those washrooms that we pointed out earlier. At the same time, we saw a family, what appeared to be a family, emerge. A mother, father, and 2 young children in tow. The man on the cell phone led the family of 4 across the border back to the Canadian side, to the point where we're standing now. He then led the family down this little ditch, across a set of railroad tracks, and down to the shoreline. So we continued to watch as the man with the cell phone led the family down this path and onto the shoreline here. For about 5 minutes, the man stood talking on his cell phone as the family waited. After about 5 minutes, they split up. The man with the cell phone went back up the path and walked to his car and drove off. The family of 4, meanwhile, walked north in the direction of White Rock. A little bit later on, we caught up with the family. We noticed that they were in White Rock, about 3 kilometers away from where we are now. We drove to the town of White Rock and noticed the man with the cell phone parked alongside a road not far from the shoreline, still talking on his cell phone. It was at that point that we lost track of everyone. He drove off, and we lost sight of the family at that point.